You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Welcome to the MaternalRx podcast, where we challenge the status quo in maternal health care and explore how education, advocacy, and interdisciplinary collaboration can improve outcomes for mothers and babies. From pharmacists and healthcare professionals to patient advocates and now legal experts, we spotlight the voices working to reduce preventable maternal morbidity and mortality and empower women to navigate pregnancy and birth with confidence. I'm your host, Dr. Danielle Plummer, PharmD and antepartum doula. And today's guest is Andi Orwoll, a Nevada licensed attorney and founder of Your Legal Doula, a legal practice built specifically for moms navigating the U.S. maternity care system. Your Legal Doula helps U.S. families deal with the unexpected in pregnancy and birth by equipping them with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to assert their rights, no matter where or how they're birthing. Andi became a single mother by choice in 2022, and her own experience with an unplanned C-section and the paperwork mountain that followed inspired her to become the pregnancy and birth lawyer she couldn't find when she needed one. You can find her on all social media platforms at Your Legal Doula and on her website at yourlegaldoula.com. Welcome, Andi. I am overjoyed to have you here with me today because this conversation is something I've been wanting for a long time, and it's difficult to find a legal expert who specializes in pregnancy, which from what I understand, you could not find either through your own experience, and that's why you started this business. So I would like you to add anything I missed and tell us, how did you get here?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the introduction, Danielle. I really want to get the word out there about birth rights. That's the whole core. That's my whole mission. And the reason it just all stems back to not only my own birth story, but just my history as a lifelong feminist, as a women's rights, advocate, as someone who is really invested in making life better for women in every way, in every demographic, in every identity of womanhood. And so when I saw that you focus on the medicine part, specifically pharmacy, so thank you. I'm so happy to be here. So when it comes to my story, I started my journey as a single mother by choice. I eventually decided to go to IVF. So that's how my daughter was conceived. I was in the thick of paperwork and intricacies from the very second that my daughter existed, in any form. And navigating that, especially with my insurance and everything, was very difficult. I was already an attorney at that point. And just what you're up against when you are trying to navigate that system is quite a lot. And it made me think, okay, I'm a lawyer and I can't figure out what the heck is going on here. How is any woman in the United States supposed to navigate this by herself? That kind of continued on into my pregnancy and then my birth. So I had midwives caring for me during my pregnancy, loved my midwives. We had a home birth all planned. The tub was all set up, in my living room. It was all ready to go. And what happened in my case was my water broke. And then 4 days later, I still hadn't gone into labor. At that point, it wasn't safe for me to deliver at home. And that is why we have hospitals. Birth is a physiological process. We don't always need interventions, but thank goodness they are there when we need them. So in my case, the risk of an infection was too high. And so I had to go to the hospital and be induced, which was the last thing I wanted, because I had researched a lot about the cascade of interventions. If you start with induction, where are you going to end up? Well, I ended up with an emergency C-section. I mean, it was classic textbook. And the thing that keeps it from feeling like trauma to me was that I was able to stand up for myself and hold my ground because I knew what my rights were. And as a lawyer, I am a trained litigator, okay? I used to be a prosecutor. I went to court every day and talked to the judge, and I have no fear. I have no shame. I will assert my rights. I will tell you what the law says, And honestly, I want that confidence for everyone. Because what shocked me was that afterward, my doula, who went with me to the hospital, thank goodness for her, but she actually told me that she's never seen anyone advocate for themselves in that position. Like, I'm standing here in my hospital gown, and they're trying to tell me something. And this is her opinion. She's like, they know you're not playing. And that's the energy I wish every woman could walk into her birth with. We are not playing. We are here to have the birth experience that we want. And of course, things don't always go to plan. But even when they don't go to plan, we will be respected. We will be listened to. We will not be condescended to. And that's actually your human right. Receiving medical care is not to be discriminated against, not to be belittled and talked down to. If I get a little spicy, it's because I just feel very passionate about this, because the actual statistic from the CDC shows that 1 in 5 women is experiencing mistreatment during childbirth. 20% of us. It's a complete, my mind just boggles every time I think about it. And luckily for me, I could hold my ground and I don't feel like I was mistreated. Now, there were things I didn't know, and you don't know what you don't know. And now I've learned a lot more after having gone through the hospital systems. I guess my unique take is that I've been through the more holistic midwifery model as well as the medical model, and kind of seen how they both intersect and when there's time and place for both, but also navigating it all, especially if you're a single mom like me, it's very hard. The business that I started, as you mentioned, is because I couldn't find the resource that I needed when it was my time. And I thought, well, no more. I will become the resource.
You just shared so much information that I have to back up. Here you were, went through this journey to become pregnant by choice. It was not an easy road to begin with. And if you listen to one of my previous MaternalRx podcast interviews, it was with one of my previous mentors and boss who went through IVF and ended up fostering and then adopting. And the legal mounting paperwork, I can't even fathom. That interview was from a medication perspective and a pharmacist perspective. To get it from a lawyer's perspective, having the training that you had, quite powerful. Like you said, we're not playing around. And that's my goal for every woman, every family heading into that hospital. A few things. So I'm just blown away because your water broke.
Yeah.
4 days. Normally, I think it's 24 hours? 4 days you waited for that natural birth to happen.
Yeah.
So what was going through your mind during that time?
I was trying first and foremost not to panic. So I didn't want to fill my mind with worry. And my midwives were really good. They checked in on me every day. I went in and we did a stress test, and they were just trying to keep my blood pressure down. As you said, I worked very hard to get pregnant. My baby and my experience having this baby, bringing her into the world, I could have freaked out. Sometimes I think back and I wonder, how did I not freak out more? But I think it's because I was doing my birth mantras. You see me out there in my neighborhood, curb walking, 2 hours a day. Nothing excessive, because to be restful and to be of a good mindset. But yeah, I think what was going through my mind that I didn't want to be going through my mind was, well, what if I end up in the hospital system and then I don't know what to do because I planned for a home birth. My insurance paid for a home birth. So my lawyer brain automatically kind of goes into the red tape of it all. I can't help it. That was unfortunate, but I think I kept as calm a mind as I could at that time.
Okay, let me pause you. That's not unfortunate. That's perfect and wonderful, because if you didn't have your lawyer brain, who knows what those outcomes would have been.
That's true. That is true.
So what's interesting is I did my doula certification because I wanted to help women in the first trimester. That's how I became this antepartum doula, because the disease where I specialize, hyperemesis gravidarum, the sooner you get care, you can prevent it from escalating and ending up in these horrible situations later or throughout the entire pregnancy. But that first trimester in traditional maternal health care is missed. I also want to circle back. Midwifery in the state of Nevada is young and new, at least in a legal and open manner. So for you to choose that route, I'm just grateful. Not to put down our obstetricians, because I am just so forever grateful to that profession and what we have. But women have a choice now, and we've learned decades later. That's why I started this podcast. We have the highest maternal morbidity and mortality rates of any developed country. Why? And it's so difficult to go to med school now, the years it takes to get not just your medical degree, your residency, your fellowship, your advanced certifications. There's just not enough to support the pregnant women, and there's a perfect place for midwives.
Yes. Can I speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely.
Because I think a lot of people are surprised when,
Yes.
oh, you're a lawyer and you wanted to have a home birth?
Yes.
Are you crazy?
Absolutely.
And to me, that was not an uninformed choice. You do not even know how many books I read, how much research I did, how many interviews I did of different providers. I knew what my options were. And so I knew, as my health history and all of that, as a low risk pregnancy, which I had up until the very end, as a low risk pregnancy, I was more likely to have good outcomes with the midwifery model of care. We know in the United States, statistically, we see it. This is not a crunchy alternative, like wild kind of thing. I'm a little crunchy, and I don't have any shame in that, because the research backs it up. It shows us that we have good outcomes with low risk pregnancies with this model of care. And I had my doula, and I had all these pieces of my team. It didn't look like, a lawyer's birth team necessarily, but I'm really grateful that I knew as much as I did so that I could have the experience that I did. My midwives, we would sit for 45 minutes in a prenatal appointment. You maybe see your OB for 45 seconds.
That's all they have time for.
Yeah. They're way overbooked. And like you said, no shade on our OBs. We need them. They care deeply about women's health. And it takes all of them. It takes the whole entire scope, of different practices and specialties.
Doulas are starting to be covered by insurances, and I'm really excited to see doulas become part of the maternal health care team. So for those who do not know what a doula is, it's a trained professional who provides non-medical, non-physical support to include emotional support, informational support to a person during pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum recovery, and sometimes, unfortunately, pregnancy loss. Unlike doctors, midwives, or nurses, doulas do not provide medical care or deliver babies. Instead, they help families by offering education and evidence-based information, supporting communication and advocacy during labor and delivery, if you're a labor and delivery doula, which the majority are, providing comfort measures such as breathing techniques, positioning, massage, reassurance, helping partners, for those who have partners with them, feel more involved and supported, and assisting with the postpartum transition and newborn care guidelines. But as I said, there's not just labor and delivery doulas. There's postpartum doulas. There's bereavement doulas. In my case, an antepartum doula to help you get off to a good and healthy pregnancy. And in your case, a legal doula. So you help families understand your rights, paperwork, consent issues, workplace protections, and advocacy within the maternity care system.
Right. And to me, that was the piece that was missing. Is there are so many amazing maternal care specialists. There's chiropractors and pelvic floor physical therapists and folks like you and our doctors and our midwife. It's so many different specialties. And I'm sitting from my legal vantage point, looking at all these ladies. They had to get the law changed in Nevada just to have a birth center. They had to change the law just to exist. And so I'm looking here thinking, okay, but what about the moms who need help in navigating all of this? And so the doula framework, I guess, came about. I'm not trying to mislead anyone. I'm not a doula. I am not a trained doula, but I am a legal doula. So I want to walk you through. I want to be your support. I want to empower you. One of the things that I offer is a birth rights course. I offer education, and it walks you through not only what are your rights, but where do your rights come from? Because sometimes you can be so intimidated by that white coat syndrome. Someone in a hospital is telling you this is policy. Well, you know what? Policy never overrides your rights. If you don't know what your rights are, you don't necessarily know maybe where they come from. Is it a federal law? Is it a state law that protects you? So the birth rights course goes through all of that. And then it goes through how to assert your rights in a way that's strong. You've got conviction, you've got confidence, and you're not playing, like we said before. And then no matter how much we do, we can be our own best self-advocate, and hopefully that prevents violations of our rights. But occasionally there are going to be times where that doesn't work for one reason or another, and then you have to protect your rights. You have to vindicate your rights. I offer the steps on what to do. And so that's if your rights have been violated in the hospital, in any other kind of care setting, or at work. That's something, Danielle, we were talking about this before we got on the recording, is that these workplaces, there's been a really cool EEOC trend the last couple months where in the state of Florida, of all places, the PWFA, that's the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. So that is a relatively new piece of litigation. It's only 2 years old. A lot of these employers don't even, they know about it, but they don't know how to be accommodating under that new framework. And so the EEOC, some of these new lawsuits, some of these new complaints that are coming in, they're showing these employers that they can't keep treating pregnant women as if they're the first pregnant woman who has ever had the nerve to work. That's kind of how I felt I was treated. There was no policy about maternity leave. As an attorney, I got 10 weeks of unpaid leave. That's it.
Wow.
That's what I got.
Okay. And I'm saying, wow, because that's more. No, it used to be 6 weeks, right?
Oh my, yeah. Well, because I had the C-section, so 8 weeks would have, well, I mean.
But you said unpaid.
Unpaid, yeah.
Wow.
So I didn't even have any kind of, I could go off, but I won't.
You can. It's okay. Let it all out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the problems is that I felt so alone, and I was a single mom, and I was the breadwinner for my future child. And I'm thinking, I'm an attorney and they're trying to do weird wage and hour stuff with me. And I'm feeling so intimidated that I can't advocate for myself because I'm in this vulnerable perinatal state. When you're pregnant, oh God, I had the worst pregnancy brain. I forgot half the English language. It was horrifying. And as an attorney going to court every day, you can imagine. So let alone when HR would say something and I knew in my lawyer analysis, I'm like, that's not right. That's not correct. I should take this higher. I should do something. But I was, 7 months pregnant. I'm not in a position to advocate for myself. And the same with postpartum is you're very vulnerable. You've got this brand new, squishy, lovely little baby, in your healing. I did not prepare for a C-section. So I did not have any idea the amount of time it was going to take and the mental energy and everything, rehabilitating my body at the same time as I was breastfeeding this child and coming to terms with my identity as a mom. Matrescence is the word that I keep hearing lately is, it's like a second puberty almost because you're going through so many hormonal shifts. You're going through all this. Okay, so the last thing you need to be doing is paperwork and trying to navigate it all.
Incredible. But you do have a healthy baby today.
I do. Yes. I do have a healthy little, almost 3.5-year-old. And she is the absolute light of my life. I recorded a TikTok video probably 5 months after she was born because I had done TikToks for my IVF journey, for my fertility journey. And I wanted to, update people on what was going on. And somebody had posed a question in some group that was, what would you tell your pre-pregnancy self, if you could go back? And of course, in the video, I start tearing up and I'm thinking, well, if I could tell her something, it would be, it's so much better than you can possibly imagine. All the reasons I wanted to become a single mom by choice, it was the absolute correct decision. Being a lawyer does not get in the way of my motherhood in any sense. And in fact, I think it helps me be a better mother. I think it helps me learn the patience, kind of to see different points of view. That includes different schools of parenting. That includes dealing with my toddler, who is a real three-nager. And, but good. Let that girl have her big presence and I know that she will come to me because we have such a close bond and she doesn't hide things. Like I'm not making her into a little girl who's going to have to shrink down to be accepted. She should be the exact shape she wants, as big as she wants. I mean, I'm her mom, so I kind of think she doesn't have a choice when it comes to that.
100%. And I did say I have 3 adult daughters, and I told them to go conquer the world, and they are. And I'm just so proud of them. And to watch you at the beginning of this journey. But going back to the hospital experience, which was not anywhere in your plan that you had mapped out with your doula or your midwives. Now you had the C-section. Mm-hmm. You get home, and following this newborn that you have with you came, you said, a mountain of financial paperwork, of hospital bills.
Yes. Part of the problem was that, so I had a PPO plan with my insurance. And so I had paid out of pocket for my midwifery, up front. It was a certain amount that you had to pay by week 37 or something like that. So I had paid it all. And I was told at the beginning of my pregnancy, when I was making all the calls and research and all this, by the associate on the phone with my insurance company, that I would be reimbursed at 60%. That's what I was told. What I didn't know was that they meant, oh, well, we'll reimburse you 60% of what we think was medically appropriate, which meant that I went through this absolute battle with my health insurance company, and I wasn't about to lay down and roll over because they make it so difficult, so disheartening. The appeal periods come up so quickly. And like we were talking about, in that postpartum state, you're not keeping track of deadlines. as all these hospital bills are starting to come in, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, okay, so now not only I have to pay for not only my unexpected C-section and my daughter's unexpected NICU stay, which is tens of thousands of dollars. So now I've got that, and the amount I'm not getting reimbursed from my insurance company. And so I had to navigate all those things. And that's just another area where if I had someone to negotiate with my insurer for me, or to help me figure out a plan with the hospital for dealing with those unexpected bills, or any kind of advocacy or guidance at all, it was just me. Like when I say a mountain of paperwork, that's what it felt like. And that early postpartum, just those kind of feelings, you don't need that. Nobody needs that ever. But I mean, especially at that time, you're so vulnerable. And so the paperwork mountain, some battles I won. At that time, oh my gosh. Okay, I remember this random bill that came up from a genetic test that had been done in my first trimester. And I think it was 18 months later that I was getting this bill, and my insurance is saying they're not going to pay it because it's untimely. And yes, and I'm like, I just got the bill. Just now. Like, you can't tell me it's untimely and you're not going to pay it. Like, go complain to the testing company. Don't make it my problem, but they do. If the insurance cannot pay, they will not pay if they can find a reason.
Well, I was just wanted to ask, because there's a clear double standard here with insurance companies. We have a limited time to appeal a bill. Yeah. However, the insurance company can come after us at any point in the future. This has happened to me. This has happened to everybody I know, not to do with pregnancy, just as a general rule. And I don't understand how that's legal, but this is the battle that we're fighting. So that was one thing. And the other thing you mentioned is if you had someone to help you navigate this process, does such a person or position exist?
Well, that's what I'm trying to create, in fact. So your legal doula is not only birth rights education, pregnancy rights education while you're at work, but my new offering that I am developing is a sort of concierge service for moms, because the most important work that you're doing during your perinatal season is not paperwork. It's everything else that only you can do. And so I'm developing a framework where I can take someone on and help guide them through. You get a piece of paperwork, you send it to me. You don't understand what it is, we walk through it together. We talk through what possible accommodations you may need. If that's the question, what kind of appeal you may need to do if it's an insurance issue, and you've gotten all these different things coming in the mail. You don't even know which. It's the hospital, but then the doctors over here have a bill and the anesthesiologist has a bill. And keeping track of all those, you should see my spreadsheet. It's ridiculous. I have a spreadsheet. And so let that show you that this is something I am building out so that it can benefit other moms. I don't know of anyone else who's doing anything like that anywhere in the country. And I want to grow my business and help more and more moms so that I can be that figure,
You'll be reaching out to people like me. I've been an amicus curiae for a case where a mom, she took cannabis through her pregnancy, and then social services took her baby away. Yeah, it was really crazy. She did end up getting her baby back, but she had to prove it was for her hyperemesis, and it was the only thing that allowed her to eat. It was a wild story. That was with a nonprofit law firm that was taking on that case, and got every expert in the country to write in on her behalf. And then another time I wrote a letter for one of my hyperemesis moms that I'd worked with early in her pregnancy. It was during the pandemic. Her obstetrician said, stay out of the hospital, go to infusion centers for your IV therapy to include your vitamins, minerals, known as a banana bag, your lactated ringer to get your electrolytes. And she did, and it came out to some crazy $70,000 or $80,000 bill. And here she was as a new mom as well, getting the mountain of paperwork. And the insurance company denied that benefit because they said in one place in her medical record, it said Zofran was helping decrease vomiting. Because of that one statement at one OB visit, the insurance company used that to deny all this. And it was just a long battle, and she did in the end, the insurance company did pay for that. But her family was it would have destroyed them, that financial debt. So I'm grateful, Andi, you're stepping into the space, this hole that exists right now that needs to be filled. Can you give us a little bit about, did you negotiate with the hospital? Is it individual negotiations? Is it strictly appealing with the insurance company? How did you even formulate a plan to tackle this?
Yeah, so that all depends on what your status is, like how you were insured, what type of plan it was, things that you paid out of pocket for. Because come to find, if you're insured and your insurance is covering part of your hospital bill, you can't negotiate the rest, the portion that you owe, with the hospital. Because what was explained to me in the hospital's financial office was that essentially I owed that money to my insurance company. I'm paying the hospital, but that was the way they described it to me. So my appeal process with trying to get more reimbursement for my midwifery bills was really where I went in full blast, because that was where they were denying what I believed, thousands of dollars that should have been reimbursed that would have helped, with those unexpected hospital bills. I mean, how to form a plan, like I had to wing it. And I don't want other moms to have to do that because it's so overwhelming. I'll tell you about a case that I dealt with, one of my clients, where there was certainly some birth rights violations during her birth. There was an unnecessary diagnosis and NICU stay. Essentially, there was no catastrophic injury that a medical malpractice attorney would have wanted to take on because there weren't thousands and thousands of dollars in damages. So that attorney is like, they're not going to get paid, really. But she still needs vindication. I worked with her to get her hospital bills forgiven, actually. That's something that is the type of remedy I want people to think creatively. How can we put moms in a better position after their births if there's been issues and they're dealing with the mountain of paperwork? It doesn't always have to be, let's jump right to a lawsuit. Let's think creatively about the plan. I could have probably sued my insurance company, and I chose not to because I didn't have the resources. And now the statute of limitations is over and it's too late. So now that I feel fired up about it, but when it's happening, you want a partner, you want an advocate there to help you create that plan because it is very overwhelming.
It's incredibly overwhelming. And I want to bring back a point you mentioned earlier, that insurance companies will pay a percentage based on what they think is fair value. But there's no way to get that fair value at the time you're hiring your medical team. And I actually went through that last summer. I hired a physical therapist. I wanted to build muscle. I knew she was at a network, but they said we can still submit the bills to the insurance. And I thought I was going to meet my deductible just through that, and came back exactly what you described, where they said, well, she's charging a lot of money, $200 an hour, whatever it was. And then they said, it's just $75 an hour is what we allow. And then my deductible wasn't, not even tapped into. So,
well, right. Because I'm sorry. I'm an attorney and math is not something that I want to be dealing with very much. And so trying to figure out okay, I've paid my copays and then I've got my deductible and then it's my out of pocket maximum. And then I'm trying to navigate whether or not they're BSing me, basically, when they're sending me these answers on, well, your midwives, this and this and this. And so, for example, in my first appeal, the first level appeal that I did, I tried to say, like, you all reimbursed, basically $3 a visit. And when I calculated it out, because I went through my calendar, you better believe that I counted every single prenatal visit, and there were like over 20. And the way they had reimbursed, it was as if they were paying like pennies for every visit. And I went through and I said, here's what they did, here's the time they spent. And it was like they make it hard on purpose. Like they get the most obtuse possible person to review the situation. And frankly, it's people who don't understand the midwifery model of care, because insurance, especially, let's talk about Nevada. You said midwifery, it's very new. My insurance company did not have a single midwife in network that would attend a birth. Not one. Even though it was my right to choose my provider, if I was going to choose the provider that I wanted, I had to pay out of pocket. When it came down to trying to negotiate with them, when they don't understand the system, you're in a losing position already. Actually, previously we spoke on this point, is that having providers who understand the system is also really important, because I kind of feel like I had to tackle that battle all by myself. And if the providers step up and help with those kind of appeals, it's actually much stronger, partly from a legal perspective, because these insurance companies have to do things evidence-based. They need to pay for this preventative care. And if your provider is there talking about the evidence and citing a research article, like my fertility doctor, she wrote into my insurance and she helped me get one of those bills down because she is an expert. She's an artist actually in her field. And so her say so about what it was worth and whether it was necessary and this and this and this, that all matters a lot. And as the patient, you're not necessarily in the position to articulate any of that.
So, Andy, let me ask you. You mentioned your fertility doctor help in this case. How would you know if a doctor would be willing to go for bat when you're newly pregnant, you're looking at midwives or obstetricians and hoping we have this wonderful glowing pregnancy? Like nobody prepares ahead saying, I need to track every visit. I need to track every copay and co-insurance and deductible met or not met. And if insurance deny things, I need to have this paperwork prepared. Should we be thinking about that ahead of time?
And I hate to say that the answer is yes, but the answer is yes. In the system that we live in the current model, that we operate under, most of us are going to have our births covered by insurance, whether it's through our employer, whether it's Medicaid, whatever the source may be. They care about the documentation. They care about those dates. They care about, your receipts. So what I did was I had a planner that was basically calendars, and it had all the stages of my pregnancy. And I would just note my appointment dates in there so that if for some reason I didn't write it down in my phone calendar or something, I had a physical place to look for everything. And I just put all the receipts, everything I printed out, and put it in that binder. Now, obviously that probably sounds excessive, but it's the reality that we live in. That's, again, why I'm trying to do what that's why I am planning to do what I'm planning to do, is because I know that is not something that most pregnant moms are thinking about.
It's the reality that we live in. I used to think socialized medicine was better. If anyone outside of the U.S. is listening to this conversation, their head must be spinning. However, socialized medicine, like the UK or Spain or Canada, there's pros and cons to that as well. And I find, depending on the country, certain things aren't covered. You maybe have longer wait times. You might not have, there's many other things. But for those of us in the U.S. where it's not a choice, right? Yeah. This is the world we live in. And it's very, very important. Usually on this podcast, I'll give clinical pearls because we're talking about medication. But in this case, we're giving legal pearls because this is probably one of the most important things any one of us can do. And this is not just through pregnancy. This is anytime you're going to get any procedure done, see any type of specialist. Track your appointments, track what you paid, track what your insurance plan says they'll cover. I've been given a runaround, and I feel like if this is happening to me and I know more than most about our U.S. healthcare system, how is everyone else navigating this? And Andy, this is why you have a position, but what is a deductible? So I was told a deductible is for anything that's not an office visit, but that's not true because my current insurance said a deductible is only if you're inpatient. But then a previous insurance I had a procedure done in a hospital, minor, but they came back to me 5 months later saying it wasn't part of the copay I thought I was paying. It was part of my deductible, and I tried to appeal it. They denied it, and because it wasn't that much money, you're not talking tens of thousands of dollars. I didn't want it going to collections. They know people like me are just going to pay it, and it was wrong. Now I wish I knew then what I know now. And anytime, unfortunately, this is the world we live in. And so if you are in the U.S. going to see a doctor of any kind, especially something like pregnancy, where you never know what could happen, track everything, keep your spreadsheets and keep your receipts. And you can do a digital version of receipts as well, but have that information. And best case scenario, you can get rid of all of it when you're done if you don't need it, but it's there if you do.
Right. So much better to have it and not need it than to need it when you don't have it. And that kind of feeling is not good. And so I want to just touch real quick on the legal pearls. This is all great legal information and it's good insight. Of course, none of this is legal advice. It is absolutely from a lawyer's perspective. And as a mom who has been through it, this is my experience. As someone who practices law and who tears apart statutes and tries to see, what the nitty gritty is, I feel like the system happened to me as a mom. Every American mom, be aware.
This is what we need to do. And thank you for throwing the disclaimer in. I normally do all my disclaimers at the beginning, but since I wasn't talking about medications this time, I did not. But I'll add one more to it. Anything we say or do is just our own opinion and experiences and for education and not part of a reflection of who or where we were. Andi, any last thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, I do. One of the things, the statistics I like to share is that the birth of our children is one of the last things we tend to remember. Even women with Alzheimer's are
Wow.
able to remember the births of their children, and
Wow.
birth matters. The way we are treated in our birth, the way we feel during our postpartum, all of that is important. And of course, like you said, I've got my healthy 3-year-old, and thank goodness we're healthy and I'm all in one piece. But that's not the only piece. The experience matters. The way that you feel about it matters because it's this transformational experience. And in our culture where we have very few, rites of passage really, other than graduation from high school, college, trade school, anything like that, this is something that women and pregnant folks going through, it is a big experience. It is something that matters, and you are allowed to have big feelings about it. And so I just want everyone to know that there is such a community around you of different types of providers, different types of professionals that really want to make the experience better for you, whether that's taking off stress, it's taking away pain, it's, mitigating that nausea, whatever it may be. There's going to be something that someone can do to help. So don't be afraid to reach out for the help, and don't feel like you have to be alone, because that's not how we're designed. That's not how we're designed at all. As human beings, creating more human beings, we need our village. And now it looks like maybe different professionals, but we're here and we want to help.
Everybody has a support person available. Reach out. That's one of the reasons I started this podcast and the work I do with hyperemesis moms, so that nobody suffers alone. If we can, like you said, mitigate that stress, whether it's financial stress, physical stress, we're here to support you. Andi, thank you so much for sharing your story and your knowledge and experience and starting this business that is just going to pay it forward to so many. Please follow her, Your Legal Doula, on social media. YourLegalDoula.com is her website. You can find me on LinkedIn or at hdpharmacist.com. Please reach out to us. We're here to support you for all your needs through your pregnancy journey. Thank you so much.